the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Oh,
Lily, hi.
hi, honey.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, my love?
I'm excellent. Okay, so we have a special guest with us today.
Yes.
Actually, this is the first one we've done on YouTube where we're now interviewing someone.
Oh, you're right.
We're
Back to our old ways.
Exactly. I'm going to put us back to this view.
Okay.
Before I bring in our special guest here.
Yeah.
Hello, Rachael Hastings.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Okay, so just to give you a little background, Rachael is a former Sea Org member who joined the Sea Org in 2004 and escaped the Sea Org in 2020. And during the time that she was in the Sea Org, she primarily was working on making videos and films for Scientology. She was recruited into the Sea Org because she had attended film school. She was a professional, and Gold and what now is the Scientology Media Productions used to have a program, and maybe they still do, called the Pro Recruitment Program, where people who had experience in the audiovisual industry were specifically targeted and brought into the Sea Org, sometimes even with waived requirements for Sea Org membership. But Rachael became a favorite in the video production area because she was very good. And in fact, she became a favorite of not only the one and only David Miscavige, but we want to talk to her today about her experience with covering up of crimes. And she has a very specific incident that she got exposed to. And I also want to say at the outset that everything that Rachael is going to talk to us about today has already been reported to law enforcement. In fact, Rachael reached out to me, I guess it was in 2020, huh? Like shortly after you had escaped. And she very immediately went to law enforcement to report about everything that she knew. Wow. And I don't want anybody to think that this is just someone that's popped up now and never did or said anything. Rachael was one of those people that went straight to where she should have gone.
First of all, Rachel, this is what I want to know. What is the sales pitch from somebody who is accomplished to go from a civilian life to, hey, join the Sea Org where you're going to live like crap, you're going to make no money, and this will be your whole rest of your career? What is the sales pitch to get somebody like you in?
Well, there's definitely a sales pitch. I will say that I was very new. I was very green in Scientology. I actually grew up in a different cult. And
so your family weren't even Scientologists?
They were not Scientologists. I grew up in Christian Science. Okay. Went to Christian Science school and camps and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And then I found out about Scientology through celebrities and Celebrity Center. And I was never recruited just generally for specifically working in the Sea organization. And I was so green in the whole thing that it was pitched to me with a shore story is what they'll say, like how, it sounds acceptable to the public, which would be those of us who are not on staff.
Sure. Well, so what was told to you that you were like, yeah.
Well, I will say my mindset was, one, I'd seen a lot of celebrities, and I'd had a very glossy view. I wanted to, I had a background in activism and, caring about the world. I'd like won presidential awards and things for environmental science, and had, gone to the Capitol and spoken at the EPA. So I was an activist. I wanted I ran away to film school. I was supposed to go into science. My family wasn't totally stoked about film as a choice, but I wanted to make films that made a difference. So the pitch for me really was, you're going to get a camera, you're going to get a crew, and you're going to fly all over the world, and you're going to make these cool films
that are going to help people.
They're going to help people. And my sister, I had an adopted sister. She had just committed suicide. She had severe mental health situations, and my parents, being Christian Zionists, did not believe in doctors or medicine, so that didn't go very well for her. I know from what I know now, she had most likely fetal alcohol syndrome and things like that. I know about this now because I'm now a foster parent. So I've educated myself a lot more. So I was very in a hurt place, and I wanted to do activism, and I didn't care about making a lot of money. I had run into some issues in the film industry, which were a little bit, SA type stuff, a lot of misogyny as well. And it wasn't necessarily welcoming to women the way it is now. Right. And here are these people coming in saying, you're going to work, we know why your sister died. And the first project I worked on was a CCHR project where we were interviewing parents whose kids had died, and there is medical malpractice, but it was like, unfortunately, they were taking instances of medical malpractice or over drugging to make money. That exists in the medical field.
Sure. Yeah. It's just that CCHR, Scientology's front group, is not doing it to expose abuses. They're doing it to benefit themselves, for themselves to make the profit. So 100%. They're not doing it for the right reasons, right? But I understand it was doing exactly what is done to most of us, right? Is finding your ruin, finding how, and then communicating to that, and then I completely understand how you got in and why you got in, and it was no,
that was a good pitch.
Yeah.
It was the perfect. It was the perfect pitch for you, Rachel.
Yes.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
Tailor-made, perfect.
Yeah. But then, what ultimately had you escaping?
It's a really long process.
Oh, okay. We don't have to get into. No, I mean, I know that it took me 6 years once I started questioning things. But I mean, overall, 35 years in, I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't.
I think I can shorthand this as to what ultimately resulted in her escaping. Was the fact that she told the people in the Sea organization that she was gay. And that resulted in her being ultimately removed from her position. She was not allowed to be anywhere near David Miscavige, and like a whole bunch of things that happened. And then eventually she just went, I can't deal with this crap anymore, and made a doctor's appointment and disappeared effectively. I think we should focus on this incident that I wanted to talk about of the abuse and cover up of abuse, and maybe do a completely separate episode with Rachel about this. What happens if you're in Scientology and you announce to them, I'm gay? Yeah. Because they pretend that that's all well and good and no problem. And in reality, it's 100% opposite. And the story of what they did to try and handle Rachel about being gay is pretty remarkable, and I think very educational. So, but as a part of that, believe it or not, as a part of the ethics handling that she had to undergo because she announced that she was gay, she had to train as an auditor. She had to do auditor training.
Yeah, and I'll jump in too.
Good.
It wasn't like I said, I'm gay and I was removed. It wasn't quite that cut and dry. It gets very complicated, but I was saying I was gay. I was also bringing up other issues that I was not okay with, like not feeding crew properly, not being able to get medical care. I had a lot of, I had like a heart condition coming on that is not existent now because I actually sleep. Various things. I had a doctor write on a prescription pad, sleep and give it to me. Sleep at least 8 hours and give it to me as a prescription at the doctor's office because he said, I can't even begin to treat you. All this stuff is happening because you're not sleeping. So there was a bunch of stuff. And then I was initially the first issue, I guess what they would say officially was removing me from post was I left to see family because no one would answer a CSW. And I was saying, I'm done with not being able to see family. I need to be
And a
able to see family.
CSW is like a request for time off or request to, I mean, they use CSWs even, Mike, for how to destroy people. Like yours.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
And for
Completed
permission
staff
to get
work
married.
stands
Yes.
for.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go to a funeral. Yeah.
Yes. Everything. And I had almost wasn't able to go to a funeral at one point, like this, a bunch of stuff. So one day I just left to see family and I just did what was on my CSW, that no one would look at. And I got screamed at for asking about it. And I kept going and saying, hey, I need help. I need to talk about this. I need help. I was told there's no time. We have real issues to deal with. So I was like, okay. So I did that. And then I was brought back by Kirsten, who broke into my Airbnb account.
Kirsten Catano Peterson?
Yes. And she went into my Airbnb, got the check-in instructions, went in before I arrived there, and then hid and confronted me and convinced me that, sure.
Hid in your room, Rachel?
She went in, looked around the room and saw everything, and then decided to hide right outside the room.
Okay.
And then show up as I walked up to the door. And
what was your reaction when you saw her there?
I mean, she's like a ghost. It was scary. But I was like, no, look, I'm done. I just want to see family. Like this is done. Like I knew what it meant, what I'd gone to do, that I wasn't going to be able to do what I needed to do. I also was like, I feel super gay, like, what do I do about this? This is like,
gay. I love it.
This is kind of, and I kept getting in trouble for getting sent to ethics for watching the film Carol, not even anything that juicy. It's a great film. It's worth being sent to ethics for, but, like all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, this is not going to work. Like, I know I'm not welcome and I can't do what I want to do. And I liked my jobs, I liked doing it. But I was like, I can't do it. So anyway, just to make it not to be nitpicky, but it was this whole, it's never simple. It's this whole maelstrom.
Exactly. I understand.
I understand too, Rachel. Like I said, I was trying to just shorthand it so we can deal with all that in another episode. But
so part of that whole Kirsten handling was 2 years of stuff culminating in me becoming an auditor.
Kirsten Catano is at your Airbnb. She, already that's like insane to me that she was found your credit card, was looking at things she shouldn't be looking at. But also what's hitting me, Mike and Rachel, is it's very interesting to hear that Rachel had a phone, Rachel had a credit card for all the things that most Sea Org members don't have. Rachel seemed to have had kind of carte blanche. So completely trusted in a way that maybe most Sea Org members aren't, Mike?
Yeah. And there are some people that fall into that category. And, I always had a phone and I didn't have a credit card. Well, I sort of did, but anyway, yes, there are degrees of clampdown. Gotcha. I mean, if you remember JB after he escaped, JB had not only a phone, but he had an iPad and he had, access. He had credit cards and all this stuff that he needed to go off and do all the crap he had to do for Tom Cruise.
Right.
So there are sort of degrees. The run-of-the-mill Sea Org member doesn't have a phone.
Yeah.
Many of them don't have driver's licenses, don't have credit cards, don't have bank accounts. They're just drones in the machine. Also, the difference is people who get sent all over the world for things, like Rachel was sent all over the place to shoot videos and events. When you're traveling like that, you've got to have a passport. You've got to have, there are things that you just really can't do without.
Right.
So yeah, but
So-
you're right.
Yeah. Because a lot of people ask us that, like even today on Twitter, they'll ask us, I thought, Scientologists weren't allowed to be on the internet. It's like, well, so I understand some people didn't, watch Going Clear or didn't, listen to our podcast or, so I just wanted to clarify because people are allowed to go on the internet, civilian Scientologists, but we just choose not to because we're going to get interrogated and we're going to get punished for doing so. And the other reason is because we believe that these people that are talking badly about Scientology are, Hitlers of the world, the evil people. So we're not, we're told like, why would you click on something that you're against? And you're like, yeah, why would I do that? So, and that's mostly Scientologists, celebrity Scientologists answer. Why would I don't choose to look at things that are attacking my church.
Right.
The same lines that Rachel filmed me saying at many events. Yeah. So there you are, like being put through the ringer because you're stating who you are, which is you're gay. You're being punished for that, and you're then being interrogated for this and punished for this. And you decide that's it. I've had enough.
And also, I really wanted to do the right thing, and I was convinced that going through these procedures and these processes were the right thing to do. And I was given a lot of handlings on having seen Going Clear, having seen Leah's book and other books and reading articles about them and all of the things that I've seen. It was extensive head handling where they prove that you all are wrong. I was given handlings on being that I needed to be harsher with my juniors that I dealt with, that I was given, I was sent to ethics for not being mean enough. And I'm sure they could make a whole website about people saying, oh, she was so mean. Right. But I was being trained to be mean and harsh and you were, they want you to have ethics presence, which means in the definition, it says, and can get mad. Like if you don't, they're like, do you yell at them? And I'm like, no, I've been with this crew for years. I haven't. Well, and they're like, well, you need to yell, I mean, it's crazy. And then they're all complaining that Leah has a voice and had a voice even before, so that it was a sign. Anyway, whatever. I'm sure there's more, but I didn't. There was so much of it, and I didn't retain all of it. There was so much of it, and they made a boo-boo and sent me to watch Going Clear in the theaters.
What?
Yes.
What? Wait, what?
To film it with spy glasses.
Rachel?
Sorry, Mike.
Hang on a second.
At the ArcLight.
That's wonderful.
And I PO'd for money for popcorn for us so that we could look like regular audience members.
So PO'd everybody just means purchase order. She literally had to put in a request for popcorn so she looked like a normal person.
I may have just wanted the popcorn, I'll be honest.
Wait, so you get these spy glasses, Rachel?
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you think I might be committing a crime?
I asked OSA, and it was OSA's idea.
So you go to OSA and you say, hey, is this illegal? And they said, no, it's fine. We're not going to broadcast it. We just need the information. I see. Okay.
We're not going to make money off of it.
So now, these glasses, it sounds so funny because you think like these things don't actually work, but I guess they do, huh?
They do. Yeah. And they were another SEERG member who's another camerawoman who does most of the OSA stuff. She was with me and she had them.
And what's her name?
Lotta.
Okay.
On one side, and she wore the glasses. I was really there because they don't want it. They couldn't, in case there was like an SP there's going to be SPs in the audience, right? So I guess I was there more for protection.
You were a buddy.
I was a buddy. I was the mission second on this mini mission.
Yeah.
You're supposed to send two people. You're not in the you're not supposed to do anything alone. So you're
Right.
always supposed to send 2 people. So I was more there for protection. And because she did this on a regular basis, she used these spy glasses on a regular basis to film things for CCHR and things like that.
Interesting. I didn't know this, Mike.
Oh, I hadn't heard this either.
What?
Yeah.
Nope. Nope.
You didn't know that Osa used spy glasses to go, Mike?
Pen cameras, button cameras.
Oh, I know about recording devices for other things, but not to go record a movie.
Unbelievable.
Never thought of that.
So while you're there, Rachel, do you have an epiphany watching Going Clear?
Well, the first thing that struck me, which I did extensive ethics handling on, was the production value. I'm a cinematographer, so I was like, this is professionally done. This isn't a bunch of like cheesy stuff. Maybe that doesn't like make a difference to other people. And I was like, this is serious. It was
because you had not heard of Alex Gibney or Pulitzer Prize winner?
I'd heard of Alex Gibney.
And Lawrence Wright. Yeah.
Alex Gibney was liked by Gold, and you can ask him. Yeah, he's respected. He's a really well-known name. He does great docs, right? So I was like, this is serious. You know, like this is a big deal. I was like, people must really be concerned about this stuff. I know what it takes to pull off production like this. So I was impressed by that. So that made it hit a little harder. And then, I had an epiphany. And then I saw, Mike. I remembered Mike from. I was in the room when Mike, you were doing interviews at CC of celebrities with the BBC show. I remembered Mike from Into Events. Like I would get sent sometimes to film journalists filming, because then you could keep them ethical by filming them so they couldn't do a cut where they were tricky with the cut, and then they could like do a documentary about that journalist.
What is so funny, I sorry to keep interrupting, but as you're talking, it makes me actually laugh, because they are so concerned with editing. Like Rachel just said, right? They do everything they accuse other people of doing. They do. Like journalists, like they think this was the important thing, right? Because we'll get them on their editing. Like, no, most productions are going to edit, right? Because they're not 10 hours long, right? If you're doing a 22-minute, a half-hour show, it's 22 minutes. If you're doing an hour show, it's 40 something minutes, right? So like to think that that's the got you moment of OSA filming people filming, it never is. It never is. It's only on your side, because I saw all the OSA documents about John Sweeney, what they were planning to do to him, and editing together a whole movie just to destroy him with your own footage.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, a lot of journalists have a lot of journalistic integrity. I had taken journalism classes in school, and a lot of them do have it. And one of the many last straws for me was I tried to maintain a certain level of journalistic integrity when we filmed projects. I wouldn't go out and be in Africa or Europe or wherever and be working with an outside nonprofit and just shoot everything fake. I always thought that was wrong. And I had a boss at Gold for years, Kevin, who was like, no, make it real. And I was like, we don't lie in PR. And so I kind of thought this stuff was more real than it was. And I would stay there and get a group to a certain level and refuse to leave. And because I was good at what I did, I was able to kind of to get away with that, whereas many other people wouldn't. And then when I ended up at S&P and we were being run directly from the top, we had a whole handling come down saying, we're not doing documentaries. We don't have to tell the truth. And I was ending up in ethics being like, that's not okay. Like, I don't agree with it. I don't believe in lying, and I started, I would film these statements being made, it's totally fine to be gay, for example, and then turn off the camera. And the senior executive on camera then starts making jokes and using the F word, the anti-gay F word, which I will not repeat. So
Dave Bloomberg, by the way.
Yeah. Yes.
What?
David Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Is the person she's
That's who
talking
did
about?
that.
Oh,
He was interviewed and then got off camera and started using the F.
I see. Yeah.
So I said,
word.
we're not supposed to be lying. LORH says you never lie in PR. I get presenting things to not be black PR. There's like this whole black propaganda, like you're making things look bad, right? I get that. But I had this idea, and because I was independent for the first many years, kind of doing my own thing and creating my own videos, I was able to be like okay with a lot of it. And if it wasn't, I would report it. And I thought something was being done about it,
Sure. Yes,
so
of course.
but then I'm seeing these lies occur. I was in the room when Tommy Davis was saying on air things like there's no policy of disconnection, and you don't, we don't ask women to get abortions. You could be pregnant. There's no shame in it. It's fine. I'm like, but hey, I know someone that just happened to, like, I was in the room. I was fly on the wall in a lot of these things. So that started to just ping and be too much for me. I mean, I'm not going to tell you all of them because it's this long track. And then I was like, report it, talk to people, speak out about it, report it, send it to OSA, send it to RTC, Religious Technology Center, send it up. It's going to get handled. And it wasn't getting handled, all the while feeling increasingly more gay, all the while coming to starting to come to ethics, the ethics people, like the ethics officers, and saying, I feel that I'm being can I say the R word?
What?
I don't know what you're allowed to say. Raped.
Oh, you felt like you were being spiritually and emotionally
I felt like I was being physically raped.
Yeah.
Because I was in this relationship and I did not was not comfortable with
what was happening,
being straight. It's just it was just about, and I was saying, hey, I feel like this has occurred and this is what's occurring, and they're like, it's and I was, before I was like admitting to anyone else or fully to myself that I'm a gay person, I was saying, I'm not okay with how we speak about gay people. I'm not okay with the gay jokes. I'm not okay with this. Like, our outward facing appearance is that we're okay with you being gay and you can be a Scientologist. You can be a part of our programs. It's not a problem. But then there's all this homophobia and anti-gay stuff going on internally. And, then I'm like, this isn't an issue. And then my crew we got sent to ethics for filming a girl at CC who has a buzzed haircut. I don't know how she identifies. I don't know if she's straight, lesbian, whatever. I have no idea. I didn't like run up to people and ask them, but she had short hair. And then the International Scientology Public Relations Officer, the in Scientology PR, Aaron Banks, pulled us in and said, what the fuck are you doing? we're not gonna show a fucking dyke on Scientology TV.
Right.
And this is why we're simultaneously attacking the people who are sharing their stories about what they went through as gay people. And I was like, well, of course I'm not gay. No, I'm not gay at all, but we should be nice to gay people, right? Which was just my own.
No, Rachel, you're absolutely right. I mean, most of us who have had the same experience, and I always say that when something happens to them, right? Like, you were doing what you were taught, just as I was doing what I was taught, right? I was trying to fix it within, right? The 6 years I was writing knowledge reports. People were telling me, my own friends were telling me, write it up to the watchdog committee. I assumed that there was somebody over David Miscavige. I had no idea there was no watchdog committee. There was no RTC. There was nothing. It was just him. And I'm like, sending up all these reports. Why is he so out PR for Scientology? He's jumping on couches. He's attacking Brooke Shields. This is insane. Why is this Scientologist saying that publicly? Why is Tom Davis doing it? Why is Mike Rinder lying? Why, like, I was writing them all up. And I got in trouble. And I had a similar thing that you're saying, like, where you're like, well, this is what I was taught to do, and it's not working. I'm getting in trouble for it, for doing what the teachings say in writing. And I think that's the most powerful experience you could have, right, Mike? Where you see, why are we not applying the policy that we're taught to uphold like the law?
Yeah, absolutely. And also this thing about what Scientology is constantly doing is
Complete.
And this lack of conviction to actually stand behind what they really believe,
correct,
is really a sign of the weakness of Scientology, and the weakness of the people involved in Scientology, because they won't just stand up. Look, I have more respect for people who stand up and take positions that they totally believe in, that I think are crazy.
Correct.
But at least they say them, and
they really are.
They are presenting what they really believe, and they stick by it. They live by what they believe. And Scientologists lie a lot about a lot of things, and it's hard to kind of fathom unless you've been involved in it and seen both sides of this picture. Because to normal people, you look and go, well, they must, they go out and they make these public statements. They couldn't be lying about that. Nobody in their right mind is going to come out and say absolute lies in the media and to the public
all the time, to the court, to police, to the FBI, to it goes on, Mike. You're right. Sorry, Rachel. But
no,
look, because Rachel, I don't know if anybody's ever told you, you really did try to do the right thing, honey. You really did. And there was nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing. You were perfect in every possible way. I just want to say that to you.
Thank you. I mean, yeah. And you were raised to be utterly afraid of someone like me.
Yeah.
And to think that an adder is a safer bedmate, as they say in Science of Survival. You're going to get bit by a poisonous snake, and that would be better than being with someone who is homosexual. So it means a lot to me that you're even that you would even say something like that, because you were raised to be scared of me. And that was one of my biggest fears. Well, I'm saying this, but if I come out as this, everyone I know is going to be afraid of me, scared of me.
Right.
Yeah. What an interesting perspective that is.
Yeah, no, it's a horrible way to feel about yourself. And this doesn't just happen in Scientology, unfortunately. No. They just, like you're saying, Mike, lie about it.
Right.
And to have to endure that every day, to hear your own group saying these things about you, and you're a good person, and you are everything they are not, and you're being your authentic self, the way you were born, perfect, and to have to live that way every day is excruciating. It's torture. It's a slow torture. So so sorry, Rachel.
So take that and then bring kids into it.
Yeah.
Now you're hurting kids. Now there's someone who's hurting children. And that's just, I just can't. I couldn't.
What are we talking about?
Couldn't let that go. So that all that was occurring, and then in late 2019, I needed to quote unquote become more of a Scientologist, because I'd been out, bopping around the world filming things and not really being a Scientologist. And they really wanted me to understand how amazing the tech is, and that was going to handle me. Right. That was part of what was going to,
that was going to fix you. Okay.
Yeah. So I did the processing, the survival rundown, which is Scientology counseling, which takes a very long time. And I don't know if it's counseling,
Rachel, more than it. it's an attempt at altering who you are. It's extremely dangerous. Scientology bit of what, Mike? What would you call this? This is
this is teaching you to be controlled.
Yeah.
The SRD is a bunch of processes developed by L. Ron Hubbard that are called objective processes.
Okay.
Meaning that they're not really done with an e-meter. They are done with your moving your body around and giving commands to you and having you give commands to things, you know, objects in the physical universe, and
Like an
holding them up
ashtray or
and putting
something?
them down, and yes, or a book or a bottle or various other things, and having
There's
you be
hundreds
marched
of them.
around rooms and march other people around rooms, and it's all about control.
Yeah,
and
because
the
Go ahead, Mikey.
theory is that you learn how to control your own self by being controlled and by learning to control others.
Right.
And it is more of the indoctrination. And I mean, indoctrination is a bit of a weak word for this. It is really pounding in very, very forcefully this idea of, you know, you can control your body, the bodies of other people, and the physical universe around you if you practice Scientology hard enough.
And you can be controlled. They're flattening your button on being controlled.
Yeah, they're flattening your body, you on being assaulted.
Yes, and a thing that I learned afterwards is that it's matched up with the training routines. They call them TRs. So you do the TRs, the training routines, and you have to do either you do that as its own professional course, or you do a little bit of the TRs, the training routines, so you can give the Scientology rundown processes to another person and then receive them, and you go back and forth, right? So they train you on moving a person's body, and they train you on one of these training routines is the person tries to jump up out of the chair, you stop them, you stand in front of them, you block the door, and you put them back in position. And I learned from my wife, who's trained by the Navy in mental health and in counseling, and was a counselor for many years in the Navy. She said, if you block someone, they're trying to exit, and you block them, that is abuse. That is legally considered abuse. And it's in the auditor training that your auditor will and your ethics officer in an ethics interview, and your auditor will always
anybody's allowed to kidnap you. Anyone's allowed to hold you in a room without your permission. Anybody.
You are trained to do it, and they will always position themselves by the door. So if I am going to take you into a session, you are on the other side of the room, and I am blocking the door so that my body will physically get up. And if you're the person giving the processing, they call the auditor, and you don't jump up and you let that person you're auditing leave, you could get declared. Like it's a high crime. So they're scared they're going to tackle you like they're in the Super Bowl to stop you, because
your wife is absolutely right. This is abuse, and I bet you, not bet you, Mike, it's illegal.
It's yes, it is. It is trained abuse. So when I started to realize that, I was like, oh my God, I trained on how to abuse people. I sat in front of the door.
Rachel, we all did. We all did. That's why a lot of Scientologists don't realize even currently that they're being abused.
No. Well, because this is also grooming.
Scientologists don't realize that they have been abused
or abused others.
I was experiencing doing this security check. So every time you go out on any project, security, it's an interrogation, right? They call it a security check, or sec check for short. So every time you go out on any sort of project, I'm sure you remember, Mike, when you come back, you may have, let's say, seen Leah's book in a book dump in the airport, and you need to get that cleaned up, right? That's like something that happened to me, right? So I'd done a bazillion of them because I was always out on project. I was not usually at a home base. So it's like these questions, did you run into anybody against Scientology, that kind of stuff? Did you do anything unethical, blah, 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 blah. So you ask these questions. So it should be routine. It should only take usually a few sessions, right? So I get this guy, and he starts confessing that he had all this sexual stuff that was going on. A lot of go in the server room he was installing server rooms in Ideal Organizations, which are the premier brand new churches that they fundraise for. So he was like going into server rooms and watching a lot of XXX movies and, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. And then it was like, then he started saying, well, you know, then there was a girl who was a staff member. He's coming from this higher organization. I pulled her into the server room and, you know, then would like flirt with her and kind of hug her. And then one time I was hugging her and I was rubbing up against her and he basically like dry humped this girl. So I was like, oh, how old was she? Oh, I don't know. I think she was 16, you know, stuff like that. And I'm like, well, was that illegal? You know, I'm like starting to uncover this stuff. And then they're like, so then the case supervisor who gets your written notes of the session starts writing more questions for me to ask because they say you have to pull the string. Like you're going to pull a string, you're going to find more. So he just starts and, you know, and you're taught that you're like not judgmental. So you're just like, oh, I understand. Yeah. Okay. So tell me more about this, you know, young girl who you assaulted, you know, because it is assault. It got very confusing because a lot of the stuff was in Europe and age of consent is different in every country. So sometimes it's illegal, sometimes it's not. It was like very like hard to tell. But if your boss is coming from like the headquarters of your company and they grab your 16-year-old daughter and dry hump her and ejaculate on her, that's assault, right? That's at least workplace sexual harassment.
Right.
Like,
but Rachel, the point is, as a Sea Org member and you had senior officials of Scientology looking at the work that you were writing down, it was also recorded. I mean, shouldn't officials for the Church of Scientology know what is illegal and what isn't, regardless of country, Mike?
Yeah. So after you do a session like that, it's not auditing. You say at the beginning of the session.
That doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter, Rachel. But the point is, because it actually doesn't matter if you give a.
So I did request that it be reported. I thought that obviously you would declare someone who is doing things like that, and then it gets worse. That was the tip of the iceberg. Okay. So I was thinking, well, yeah, you're not, you know, obviously we would report something like kids being abused, right? Like,
no,
this guy's not like a celebrity. Like that. I know it's great. You're like, duh, no. But I was like, wouldn't we, you know, I'm like, just declare the guy and send him back to Europe and let the police handle it, right? Because that would be safer for us, right? And I was like, so I'm like trying to convince these people, like, isn't this a security risk to keep him around? And he's still going on the internet and, you know, doing this stuff. So because of our internet crimes as well. So but no. And I was like, this is just too much. Like I thought, yeah, okay, like don't sue your Scientology friend for a business dispute. Just, you know, of course, Wise Mediation is going to work this mediation group they have with for businesses, right?
Right.
Not like abusing kids.
Right.
So I also hadn't really run into that much before because I wasn't dealing with that type of thing.
Right.
So no, it was and I was like, look, this is too much. Y'all got to do the right thing. Just declare this guy. He's not famous for anything. Just send this to the police. Like he needs to be stopped. Right. And you know about these things. Don't send him out. He was then later sent out again on project, given money, going in the uniform of a middle management, high level organization, showing up in lower organizations and interacting with people and their kids and things like that. So he was not even. I didn't see a justice action happen. I was even told, "Hey, pulled aside. We need to make sure this guy doesn't get introverted about what he's done. We need to be, you know, he was handled with kid gloves, and it was not that big of a deal when I had observed things that were so dumb be such a big deal."
So Scientology said to you, they didn't want you to hurt his feelings about.
Yes, we had to make sure that he did not become introverted.
And when you asked your superiors to report this, what were you told?
I wrote a lot of written reports because after these sessions, you would write a report. So I sent those reports to OSA, to RTC, to the security, and to the head of the ethics section of that organization, which is called ILO. And I was not answered most of the time. So then I kept writing them, and I said, hey, look, this is getting too gnarly, because he started. I don't know how much you want to know about what he did, but
well, I know that that one of the girls that was involved was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And this was like a 30-year-old man, right?
Yeah, Rachel, I think it's important that you go through what you found out, because right now all we know is that he may or may not have done anything because it was maybe somewhere in Europe.
Right. So
Mike? I mean, am I categorizing that wrong?
No. No.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know a lot of what Rachel has told me about the details about this, which she reported already, like I said, to law enforcement. This guy was a serial child molester, serial child molester and child pornographer, and engaging in creating child pornography. I mean, this is not just a guy who rubbed himself. Like, the only detail we've got so far is he rubbed himself alongside a girl who may or may not have been 16-year-old,
which is already disgusting, and he should be in prison to me. But
that's terrible, and I'm not negating that.
No, I know
but it's so much worse than this. This is someone who should have been locked away. Someone who should not be allowed to interact with young women in any circumstances. And yet what ultimately happened was he was sent back out with with the authority of seniority in Scientology to organizations out there. And believe me, when someone walks into one of those Scientology organizations in Oslo or Hamburg or Austin or whatever, and they're there with the authority of the Sea organization, it's like, bow down. These are the royalty of Scientology.
Yeah, this is international.
This is the international peeps. These guys, you do what they say. And this, like, Rachel, I know, reported this to every ethics officer, to the Religious Technology Center, to the ILO, to, like, you could go through the alphabet of names and titles. And she reported it, and absolutely nothing was done to protect anyone from the predation.
Disclaimer or not, if you are aware of a crime being taken place or a possible crime, you should report it to the police. And where is he today? Is he still in the Sea organization?
Last I checked, he was still in the Sea organization at ILO.
What is ILO? What is ILO?
International Liaison Office, which is that Hollywood Boulevard tall building with the yellow Scientology sign on the top.
Oh, is that where OSA is, Mike?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, it's in the building. I was sending it up a few
David
floors.
Miscavige's building too. That's his official address.
So then he was in the Sea organization at a younger age. His parents are Scientologists. He was in the Sea organization. He was removed at a certain point for unethical sexual behavior. And then he was re-recruited and joined again and promoted to the International Liaison Office in Los Angeles, California. So he went from the continental level liaison office, was out for a couple of years, then back in. So some of the times in there, he was a Sea Org member. Some he was a Scientologist and was out of the Sea Org, but about to go back in. And so it gets a little shady whether he was actively in at the moment of each crime or not. But he was a Sea Org member effectively, other than being kicked out for a little bit.
But he wasn't reported to the police. I don't
care. Never reported to the police. No, and it was after his being kicked out for unethical sexual behavior. He was then given a religious R1 visa, brought to the United States on an R1 visa, and sent around org to org to org, and sometimes church to church to church, as we say. Sometimes staying in a hotel or an Airbnb or something like that on his own. Sometimes staying in Scientologist homes where they have children and things, right? So here's why. Excuse me. Here's why this is disturbing. He said he would go out on vacation, and he had a girlfriend, and he was on vacation like on the Italian coast or whatever, and he would sneak into the bedrooms of the younger girls at night. These were kids that were, 8, 9, 10-year-old range.
Okay.
And
these are Scientology kids.
Not necessarily. They may have been, they may not have been.
But yeah, so it's even worse that we don't even know, right? It's
right.
Any and all children, right?
Yes, and he was sneaking away and doing that. And then he said he started to reveal. He said that he would do stuff on the internet. So this guy's an internet genius. He was working for INCOM, which is the internet organization for Scientology, which is an RTC level organization. Obviously, with these shenanigans, he doesn't qualify for an RTC level organization. So they would have him work for them, but under a project, like as a staff member of the International Liaison Office.
Sure.
So here he's basically putting in all the servers and stuff for all these ideal organizations and all those like the internet that so the computers won't let through any of this kind of thing, and all that kind of stuff, right? Security server stuff, whatever. But he was really smart with this stuff, so he got sent all over the world doing this on projects. And before or after he was first in the Sea organization, and I don't know whether he continued this behavior while he was still in the Sea organization, because I did quit doing the procedures on him and someone else took over at a certain point. He would lure, he said there was websites he knew about where in Europe where he could lure young girls come on these websites, and he would lure young girls into chat rooms and do web chats just like this. And he would talk to these young girls. He said the youngest he did it with, he thinks was 12. She could have been even younger, but he thinks she was 12. And he would talk them into on camera while he was doing these live chats, and he would record it, and then he would keep these recordings and have them on his computer and have them on his phone. He took them to St. Hill. He took them across international borders. That does qualify. Now I was pissed, so I went, and they were like, well, we don't know what's really illegal and what's not illegal. So I was like, oh, maybe everyone in OS is overwhelmed. I'm gonna go look up this stuff myself. So I went and got onto the internet and researched Interpol laws and all these things, and did quotes saying he broke this law, this law, this law. Like, this is considered the creation of child pornography, and it's trafficking it across country borders. Like Interpol, FBI, LAPD, like whatever, like this is serious, right? And I said, look, he could be doing this in orgs. And they were starting to look into that, and he was starting to admit more and more and more and more. And then he said to me, okay, look, this started when I was a kid. When he was a teenager, he took a young girl about 5 or 6 years old and lured her back behind a large appliance, like a refrigerator or some type of thing, in a garage when there was a party going on with Scientology families, and pulled her back and forced her to sit on his lap. And then let her go. This eventually was found out by the parents and was silenced by the parents. So I will say this brings up certain things. Now, being a foster parent, you have to learn about child sexual abuse. And I have encountered it and run into it, and I know about it. My wife also was trained to handle rape and sexual trauma within the Navy, and as a counselor. And she said they say not everyone who has been sexually abused as a child abuses others, but all abusers have been abused when they were kids. So now you've got a kid who is in a Scientology family, and this really is a big deal because I think because his dad's a Scientologist, had an alcohol program, ended up at Narconon, I believe. His parents are Scientologists. He's a Scientology kid. This doesn't make me feel bad for him because he's an adult now.
Right.
He chose to continue that cycle. But we know that we know from a psychology, modern science point of view, we know that he was abused as a kid, probably within his church, because statistically, the majority of sexual abuse happens from a family member or someone in a church group. So a trusted person, and churches are like become these perfect places for grooming and cover-ups, and abusers take advantage of that scenario.
And Scientology is no different. So you reported this to, like you said, Mike started this with, you reported all of this to law enforcement.
I did, but I had to. I knew I was toast if I was going to do that, so I left and did it.
Yeah.
So this was
after she left.
Yeah. So this was the straw that broke the camel's back. You couldn't live with yourself, so you left Scientology. Reported this. What happened with the reports to law enforcement?
Nothing. Nothing I'm aware of.
And when did you report this, Rachel?
Like
2020.
2020.
When you first left and you first reached out to me, that was the first thing that I said to you, Rachel. Are you willing to go to law enforcement with this information? And you said yes, absolutely. And that is what happened.
And I do think that
a foster parent, we had a situation where we were had a potential emergency placement, and we ended up needing to be recertified as foster parents in a new county. Kids are important to me. The kids are going to be first, right? So I needed to make sure I got recertified before I had Scientology calling up CPS and saying I'm a child molester, because that's what they will say. They will say you're an abuser because I'm saying that they are hiding abusers. Like I know how it works. Well, and they'll be certain that they're right.
They're gonna
and I'm gay.
They're going to accuse you of the very thing they're doing. And
I practice lesbianism, so clearly I'm like sadistic and whatever. Like it's like they're certain of that. They won't even think that they're doing anything wrong by not having evidence. They know deep down that that's who I am, right? And here's this guy. He was saying to me almost as if he has empathy, and it could all just be an act, and he's borderline personality disorder. I don't know, but he's saying to me in sessions, I have a problem. I don't know what's wrong with me. Whenever I see a girl that's pre-puberty, prepubescent, I just want to have sex with her.
Wow.
And he was going out searching for girls that looked young and doing sexual things with them. He admitted to searching for child pornography while in the Sea organization on Scientology servers. He then said, oh, well, I didn't actually click on it. Because I was like, well, isn't that like really illegal? And he's like, oh, well, I didn't actually click on it. I don't believe that.
Well, he did enough. I mean, he didn't need to click on anything. He's already committed many crimes. I mean,
and he was saying, I can't, he didn't say I couldn't control myself. He said, I can't control myself. I have a problem. I don't know what's wrong with me. And they're like, let's make sure he doesn't feel introverted. Let's make sure he's really well fed and well rested. And then let's do a nice, gentle ethics handling with him. And I was like, I went through way more intense handlings because I wanted to see my family, or I wanted to feed my crew.
Right.
Like, or I wanted to go to a doctor, or like whatever what was handled way more harshly.
This guy is committing crimes against children, and your Scientology is telling you to just make sure you don't hurt his feelings and make him feel bad about doing it. Because
and at all costs, do not report this to law enforcement.
Right. 100%. I, in writing, requested, I said, declare the guy and report him to law enforcement. Like even if it came out, it's going to be good PR for you. You're going to be like, we're the religion that doesn't cover up these people. We're the religion that stands for, because we're doing all this stuff with the police. I'm filming y'all with the police all the time. You're like, oh, buddy, like they're not going to come arrest you. Right. Like how could this reflect on you badly? Like, how could it possibly reflect on you badly. I'm like, I don't get it. And,
Right.
but additionally, the whole time I was in there having panic attacks and saying, I can't do this. I don't want to be in the room with this guy. I
Right.
don't want to stand in a line with this guy. I don't want to take this guy and watch him eat and make sure he takes his vitamins. Like, I cannot be around this guy. I was
Right.
flipping out.
Of
I couldn't
course.
sleep. I was
Yeah.
shaking and crying all night, and I didn't know why. I was having complete anxiety attacks,
Of course.
if not panic attacks. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I can't deal with this, because I said, I experienced this as a kid and I'm a
Yeah.
mess. And that then led into me receiving a security check about what I did to be abused
Upset about it. Yes.
as a
You,
to
yeah.
be abused as
Sure.
a child. Like, specifically, what did you do when you were abused as a child? That is your fault, which they
When
say
you,
cause point. I was
yeah.
like, I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I didn't do anything. It's not the kid's fault. I'm in there having to find like how it was my fault that a 30-something-year-old, you know, religious camp counselor came and was
And abuse you.
abusive.
Right. Right. No, it makes sense. I mean, this is the technology, is to make the victim the reason for the crime being perpetuated onto them. Right.
Right.
Victim
It's your
blaming.
fault. Yes, victim blaming, amongst many other things. So, Mike, Rachel, I'm sorry. Do you have any documentation of these crimes that you reported, or any names of people that you reported it to, or anything like that?
I didn't get to keep anything, because you have to now. They're switching these things, so they would have to be written on internal systems.
No. I'm talking about to the LAPD or to the FBI, like to the agencies.
I reported to the FBI.
And you've never heard anything from them.
I mean, I've heard back from them on, I've heard back from them just in general, but that has not resulted in anything.
This man being arrested.
No,
Or-
or his visa being canceled.
Or Scientology officials being questioned, or for them to be arrested for obstructing justice or for not reporting crimes. What I mean, Mike, don't they have to report these crimes? Aren't they supposed to?
So I was asked,
Uh-huh.
they have this priest penitent confidentiality thing. And that's
Uh-huh.
why they were like, so someone did ask me from law enforcement, they can't use these things that are from sessions. They can't pull PC folders and get into them, because Scientology is still a tax exempt religion. They claim that these sessions and the reports from them are under priest penitent confidentiality. So I'm not a lawyer, but what I said was, hey, look, every time it's a security check, you say at the beginning of every single session, I am not auditing you. And you write up reports and send them to all different kinds of people. Also, I am not an ordained minister.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. So I never went to I never like got ordained or got a dog collar. I wasn't even, I just did the courses. I wasn't even,
Right.
I couldn't even audit in a room alone. Like, I wasn't even certified, like stamped as
Mike,
a.
did you want to say something about that? Yeah, understood.
I was just going to say, the issue is, that's what Scientology argues, that this stuff is all protected and can't be disclosed because it would violate the priest penitent privilege, et cetera, et cetera. What the problem is, or the loophole, or the truth is that all of this stuff gets reported to all of these different people. It is not a matter of a person with a priest sitting in a room confessing. This is a person with a Scientology auditor being sat down and confessing, and then that person and 7 others having all the information, which automatically breaks the priest penitent privilege claim in the first place. It's like a lawyer claiming, or someone claiming that they have attorney-client privilege, but they're talking to non-attorneys about what it is that they are claiming is privilege.
Exactly.
You can't maintain that privilege if you are disclosing the information outside of that priest penitent activity.
Correct.
So all of the reports that were written, all of the people who were aware of this, the ethics office, the MAA, Kirsten Catano, the reports officer, RTC, etc., etc., etc. All of the information that those people have is outside of the priest penitent privilege crap anyway.
Right.
So the issue is, how do you get it? How do you extract that information? And, you know, Leo, we have talked 1,000 times about,
Yes.
you know,
And I'm sorry, I was
you
just
gotta
taking a note.
go, you gotta go raid their files and get
But exactly,
information.
but who's working for Scientology? Who would say that to Rachel? I mean, do you just not understand Scientology policies? Because it sounds a little bit like you're doing the work of Scientology when you're saying to somebody, well, that's confidential information, so we can't go and extract that information. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mike?
It sounded like they felt that legally there was a lot of information they cannot obtain, and that the belief is that it's all going to be put under, or a lot of it's going to be put under priest penitent confidentiality, and they won't legally be able to take it. Or if they can get it and they get their hands on it, it's not admissible in a court of law.
Well, see, this is the probably the shorthand thing that they are saying to you to sort of respond to your question. The actual answer is far more complicated. The actual answer is that Scientology will, if they seek to prosecute Scientology, they will throw up every barrier. They will hire 1,000 lawyers. They will hire the former, head of the Department of Justice in Southern California. They will do everything. And can they get anybody to sign off on taking this on and devoting the amount of resources that are necessary to devote to that activity, as opposed to devoting it to drug running or whatever their other things are,
what you're saying, Mike,
that are much bigger political issues.
Sure.
That
Sure.
So there's a lot. It's a very complicated picture when you come to
what you're saying. I think you're right, Mike. I think it's like, we could tell these stories all day, all night, right? But if they don't have a victim coming forward, and all of these girls probably, some of them are unaware that they were victimized. They wouldn't be taught by their Scientology families or by their own so-called church. They're not learning what it means to be molested. They're not learning what is not okay, right? As we went over, Rachel. So they likely are not even aware or remember or know. So I understand how difficult this is, and I'm learning more and more. Like, you think just talking about it was going to inspire some agency to do something, but it really is about reading the files, Mike. They had their only success really in uncovering what Scientology is doing was when the FBI conducted a raid on Scientology files, and there they found hundreds of illegal activities on behalf of Scientology and Scientologists. And I think you're right, Mike. That's really the only way. And Rachel, maybe your story will add to another story. Maybe somebody will come forward one day and they have that on file and they go, oh my God, this is the girl this is one of the victims of this piece of shit. Like, now we could finally get them. And now we have names of OSA people who knew about it, who were still there. And I can only hope that all of this leads to protecting victims of Scientology and beyond.
Yep.
So thank you for your courage, and thank you for your willingness to come forward, and that you saw, so have many other people, and yet to come, right? It just gives people hope that people like you who say, this is not right. This is not who I am. This is who I am. This is what I represent, and I'm out, and I'm going to do something about it. So thank you for your courage inside and out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Rachel, you're now, like, we are seeing more and more people who are now speaking out, telling the things that they have to say, who we hadn't heard from for a long time, or hadn't been willing to come forward. And I think that the gates are opening, and the flood is coming through those gates now, of every person who tells of their experience. There is a whole bunch of other people out there who may have similar experiences, or know about, or it will jog them and
or making the victim of one of these stories, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And,
it all connects.
the snowball is happening. And I too thank you, Rachel, for being so brave. You have been brave since day one. Like, there's a lot of people who come out of Scientology very damaged, and they're not as strong as you were when you first reached out to me. And I know we went through a lot of stuff, about what's going to happen and where am I going to go and how is this all going to work. But you made it work out, and you have a great life now. You have a new wife who's amazing, and you got kids, and you've got your career back, and you're working, and things are going well. But that is a reflection of your strength of character, because right from day one, you were like, I don't agree with this. This is wrong, and something needs to be done about it. And I really appreciate your courage and your dedication to sticking to this, because you set an example for a lot of people.
Yes. Thank you. And it's a long process, and for anybody who's listening, it's okay for it to be a long process, and that's fine. But I want to impress upon both of you how helpful it is what you do, because I feel like I know you both so well because I've listened to every podcast episode, and you can get to that stuff. Like, if you're under the radar listening, like, go on Sunday and take your iPad and get on the internet at McDonald's and listen to something. Like, there are ways around, and there are people listening. So I would say keep listening, because I decided, like, nobody's going to tell me what I can and can't listen to. That's fascism. What I can and can't see. That's Nazi stuff. That's not normal, right? That's not normal. So if you got nothing to hide, like, just let me look at what's out there. So I listened to you all. I watched your stuff, and the web-based stuff is really good. It may be a little risky to carry a physical book around. You get one of those pictures, like, I think, was it you, Leah? There was a picture of you walking out of somewhere that was like a paparazzi book blown for good. And I was like, oh, she's gone. She is out the door. I remember seeing that, so that might, not that they're going to get paparazzi, but someone might. So, but this internet stuff is very important, that it's out there. And I want people to see that it is okay on the outside. Come on out. People are really nice. Psychologists are really nice. Gay people are really nice. Like, nobody's out here going to, like, hurt you. Like, of course, there's crazy stuff in life and whatever, but it's not really this big, bad, scary world. And people think it is. And the law enforcement and FBI agents and stuff, they're demonized. They're not scary people. Like, maybe we would wish there was a little more effectiveness, but they're not scary people. And I will say, almost every staff member, 99% of staff members have been involved with fundraising, and that you get quotas to raise money for the ideal organizations and to sell books and all kinds of things. They all were trained on the financial shenanigans that went on. All of them were doing them. So chances are, if you're a staff member or a SEERG member, you have committed illegal acts. And I would urge you to speak out about it. Don't hide. Speak out about it. Get in contact with Mike, and get in contact with law enforcement, because you're going to be seen as a victim if you come forward. But when they do come, and when this shit does topple, and it will, and there have been Scientologists toppling for financial stuff, and that's how they took down the mob, was financial stuff, right? So if you've been doing things, you might not even realize you're doing something illegal, but you were doing illegal stuff, right? I saw it. I wasn't ever into fundraising. I luckily skirted around it, but come forward and, you know, make a deal and get out, because if you're guilty of it and you haven't come forward and you're sitting on those crimes and you're harboring that criminal information, it's not going to be good. Yeah. Right. So I would encourage people, even though we want the FBI and the law, the police and everybody to be more effective, they're not bad people. And I would say come forward and tell your story. If you can't tell it publicly, tell it to the authorities, because
I agree.
For yourself, for your family, for your future. If you're not going to do it for everybody else and you feel that it's wrong, do it for yourself. I think that would be a smart move, personally.
Perfect.
Thank you, Rachel. Now, just one more disclaimer before we go. Rachel, when Scientology starts to attack you, we should let everybody know, because we'll update the video and say, oh, like you said, there's all of a sudden a report to Child Protective Services about Rachel and her wife. And then all of a sudden, her wife's job is getting crazy emails and getting crazy things. You know, it's always seems separated from Scientology, because you can't always prove it's a Scientology operation, but you can. So, and this is what happens when people speak out, but you have to be prepared, and, you know, you weather the storm. And so, Rachel, keep us updated about what Scientology, hopefully with this disclaimer, you know, you will be free from any attacks, but likely not, because Scientology can't help itself because of the policies that are in place. Mike?
I 100% agree.
Okay.
Let us know. Thank you so much, Rachel. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. So much love to you. And we're going to do another episode. We want to hear everything, and we want to hear it all. You continue to shine. You continue to shine, my darling. And all my love to your wife, to your family. Protection. We're all going to pray that you guys are protected as the beautiful family unit that you are.
Thank you.
We will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, honey.